Welcome to the Spirituality with Ashley podcast. I'm your host, Ashley. Welcome back to all my OG people who listen to this. And if you are brand new, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. So glad you found me. I am all about some divine timing. And if you are just now tuning into this episode, you probably need to hear some of the stuff that's going to come through. I am setting the intention to channel whatever needs to come through for whoever is listening to this. And today, this episode is actually about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome when it comes to channeling, when it comes to doing spiritual readings, when it comes to connecting with your intuition. I feel like it's almost like this rite of passage to go through the cultivation of trusting yourself and trusting the insights that you receive. And man, I'm really on this journey of letting go of my perfectionist tendencies. And like, even as I'm speaking right now, my brain, I'm having a conversation with myself about not trying to use the perfect words or say everything in the perfect way. And thank you, Spirit, because that pulls in perfectly with what we're talking about today, which is not needing everything to make sense, not needing evidence, not needing proof, and to just trust and surrender and allow yourself to receive. And so many people who resonate with me tend to have those concepts in their life in one way or another. So I know that when I started doing spiritual readings, oh God, I feel like I went through so many initiations. And it's so nice to talk to other psychics, other people who do spiritual readings, other intuitives, because we all share these similar experiences on our paths of growth and of trusting and of learning to surrender, of learning not to attach to the outcome or to saying the perfect thing and letting go of wanting to say what you think somebody's going to want to hear and instead telling them what they actually need to hear. And it can be really uncomfortable. And I've spoken about this before in previous episodes because as a recovering people pleaser, it was very difficult for me to get used to receiving insights in a reading with somebody and knowing that they're not going to want to hear it or whatever the insight that I'm receiving being in opposition to what they're expressing. And it's wild. And I also had this thing where I really wanted to make sure that everybody was super satisfied after their reading. And so it's almost like I would let the person, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Let me explain it differently. So when you're doing a spiritual reading and you're the person who is receiving the insights, and then you have your client, I was like letting the client lead the session, and where it's actually really my responsibility to lead the session because I'm taking ownership of creating a safe and sacred container. And then I am taking responsibility for receiving insights and messages and then delivering them in a way that the person is going to understand. And whether you're somebody who does spiritual readings for other people or whether you do it just for yourself or for your family members, this still applies. When you're receiving the insights, you're the one who is, I mean, you're co-creating in a session when you have it with somebody else, but I had to learn that I'm guiding the session. I am the guide. And so I am taking responsibility, stepping into that leadership role, because sometimes people will come with a question and the question or statement, because sometimes people will make statements, but I know that they're questions. And sometimes the question you're asking isn't the information you actually need to move forward. And you're asking that question because you cannot see the whole situation. And so this isn't what I was planning to talk about. So this must be me channeling. Love that. Let's just start it off with channeling. And so when somebody asks a question or says something, and you immediately receive all these deeper insights that are actually on another topic, I think it can be a bit uncomfortable because the person's like, look, I just want to know if this guy is going to get back together with me. And you're like, oh, it's not actually about the guy getting back together with you. I know that's the question you're asking, and I know that's the answer that you want. But the answer that your guides and spirit are giving me right now are that this is actually about you. This is about your inner work. And I can use this example because it's so common. It's so common. Generally, I want to say like 99%, and I just saw the number 99%, which is why I say I want to say that. 99% of the time, if you're asking questions about your relationships, it's about you because your relationships are a mirror of you and the things inside of you and your energy and what you want and what you don't want. Like life, I love how Abraham Hicks puts it. Life is it's this beautiful opportunity to get to experience so many things. And through those experiences, you get to refine your desires. You get to decide, like, oh, I experienced this thing. Did I like it? I probably don't want more of that. I'm going to make choices that don't really give me more of that. But I experienced this other thing and I loved it. I'm going to make choices that put me more on a path to experience more of that. And that's kind of how it works. It's a very simple breakdown. And so, anyway, today, I really wanted to talk about imposter syndrome. And especially in the context of spiritual work, because so many people I work with, so many people I speak to, me, myself, we have this thing about trusting ourselves. And you have to be able to trust yourself to trust the insights that you are receiving from spirit. And I'm just going to say spirit today. I might actually say your guides some of the time, but for the most part, I'm going to try to say spirit to keep us all on the same page. And that trust takes patience and cultivation because from the time that we are born, we are socialized into a society that teaches us not to trust ourselves, teaches us that whatever is happening inside of us is without merit if it can't be validated by evidence from our physical world. And that's just because we live in a physical world. That's the way that our society is, whatever. It doesn't even matter why. The point is that it is extremely common for us to lack trust in ourselves. And I think that part of why we are here is to remember that we have everything that we need within us and that our trust in ourselves is inherent. We actually all do trust ourselves. It's just that we have to get our conscious brain on board with it. But I think subconsciously we all trust ourselves. I think we all know deep down that we are spiritual beings and that we have this connection to source, to spirit, to our higher selves. And that no matter what, that connection is not going to be severed. And so whether you trust the insights that you're getting or not, you're getting insights and they are valid. And that trust part is just getting your conscious mind on board and allowing your ego to kind of step aside, because it's the ego that comes in and questions it, and it's our conscious mind that is like, well, this has to make sense. Like I need to understand where it came from and I need to understand why. And we ask all those questions because we have this urge to attribute meaning to everything and to understand. And so anyway, I feel like I'm getting off on a tangent. This is going to be a bit of a rambly podcast, I feel like, podcast episode. Okay, so I want to set the tone for this episode, even though I've already been here talking for like 10 minutes. This is going to be the longest intro. And I want to set the tone. This is always an open space for you to express yourself authentically and just be exactly who you are. And I always want to create space for people to do that. And I'm very passionate about helping people to do that for themselves also. Learning how to do that for myself has been, I don't want to say the most fun because I feel like there are a lot of trials and tribulations, but I really pride myself on creating a safe container where people feel safe and comfortable being themselves and expressing themselves authentically. And that that is the tone that I want to set for this episode and for all episodes going forward. And especially for this episode, I want to emphasize that this is a safe, open space. And we're going to talk about nerves. We're going to talk about self-doubt. We're going to talk about fears that come up, especially when we are providing authentic insights, whether it's to ourselves or other people. So, why does imposter syndrome even show up? And honestly, this applies to spiritual work and it applies to life. I'm a software engineer slash data engineer. I honestly really resonate with software engineer, but I technically my professional title is data engineer. But my point for mentioning that is that I experience imposter syndrome in tech, as a software engineer, not as much anymore. I'm really cultivating more. Gosh, how do I want to put that? I'm I'm cultivating a healthier perspective, I guess you could say. I'm really doing a lot of inner work when it comes to that aspect of my life. However, I feel like this is a way more choppy episode than it usually is. And it's also because I'm trying to slow down. I speak so quickly and I'm always going, going, going. And I'm trying to really consciously slow down. I think it's making me choppy. And I think the fact that I'm pausing longer and taking these longer pauses is making me uncomfortable because I'm usually like trying to speak so fast and get it all out because I don't want to forget what I'm going to say. And I have so many ideas at one time. So this is me just being vulnerable right now and letting you guys know that I'm uncomfortable trying to speak slowly and not having like this very detailed script to follow and just kind of like doing this off the cuff. It's really good practice to help me to trust myself and to help me to cultivate more sensuality. It's the word that came to mind. Okay. So imposter syndrome shows up all over the place. And it comes from passion and purpose. How cool is that? So, the passion for delivering meaningful insights and helping others can actually create more self doubt because when you care so deeply, the stakes feel higher. Think about when you care about something a lot, like it's something that you have created high stakes around. So there's going to be this higher level of nerves around it because your attachment to it has expanded. And so detachment is such a huge part of this whole deal. Detaching from the outcome, detaching from results, detaching from someone's reaction, detaching from what someone thinks about you, detaching from your expectations, detaching. And when you detach, I think that's another thing that supports you being in the moment because you're detached from the future. You're detached from the present. You are literally just in that moment. And when you're in the moment, you don't have expectations. Expectations come from being future focused, from thinking about what you want from the future. And regret comes from thinking about what you wanted to happen and didn't happen in the past, having expectations that weren't met. So when you're in the moment, you are detached from that. When you're in the moment, you're detached from shame. When you're truly in the moment, you're detached from guilt. When you're truly in the moment, you are detached from expectations. And so cultivating mindfulness to help you to be in the present moment is one of the most powerful things that you can do when you are working on your intuition, when you are reconnecting with your intuition, when you are doing spiritual readings. Be in that moment. Whatever comes through was meant to come through. That's it. That was one of the best things I ever learned If it comes through, if I said it, if it came out of my mouth, whether I felt good about it or not, because, I'm that Virgo rising in me, I'm deeply, deeply analytical, super self-critical. And I'm not just saying that's for Virgo risings, that's the shadow of Virgo, is the hypercritical thing, being very, very, very critical. And anyway, so I I understand. I understand how much pressure there can be when somebody is trusting you to deliver messages to them, and you know that they are emotionally involved in what they're going to hear. It feels like a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. And I can feel that right now. Like my my neck is tightening up a little bit. And so I think that there are unique vulnerabilities when it comes to spiritual work. And I think some of them make it difficult for people to fully allow themselves to step on to that path. Because I know that so many people out there are feeling the call to do spiritual work, and whatever that looks like, that could be delivering messages to people, that could be healing, that could be guiding people, it could be, yeah, whatever it looks like for you. And I think that in spiritual work, there aren't always tangible things to help us to know for sure that we're right. And it's not even about being right. It's about surrendering and allowing yourself to deliver whatever is needing to come through in that moment, or accept and receive whatever is needing to come through in that moment. And I think not having tangible proof or traditional metrics that we're used to, that we're taught are necessary to have, I think I think not having those things makes it really easy to question yourself, because you don't have something to fall back on to be like, oh, okay, so I was right. We don't have the external validation in spiritual work that's like, oh yeah, that message you delivered was spot on. And it was really, really nerve-wracking for me when I first started doing email readings. I did not have the person sitting in front of me. I would go into their Akashic records. I would look at their questions as I was already in their records. I wouldn't look at the questions beforehand. I wanted no idea. I did not want my ego or conscious mind to have anything to do with the reading. I just wanted to channel right on the spot and whatever came through as I read the question for the first time. And it made me so nervous because I didn't have the reaction from the person to go off of. And when I first started doing readings with people, their reaction was so important to me because it let me know, like, oh, I'm doing a good job. I've learned at this point through experience and just through doing the things that now I don't even want to look at people because I don't want or need the external validation. It's actually really distracting for me now. I've gotten very good at just surrendering to my channel and allowing whatever needs to come through and trusting that. And it has taken practice. It's taken repetition. And I still have times, that's why I'm doing the episode, because I want to normalize the nervousness that can come with wondering if what you're bringing through is even real or not. And I still have times where I'm like, oh no, I have a reading. What if I can't connect? Oh no, it's been like a week or two since I've accessed the records. What if somebody books a reading and then I'm just blank? It is this very visceral fear. And when I'm getting a lot of practice, when people are booking a lot of readings, it doesn't really happen because my confidence gets boosted because I'm doing it so much that I'm like, oh, I've got this. And now that I've been doing it for a while, I don't feel that. Even when I do take breaks or I'm not doing as many readings for people back to back, I just know now that that's a thing that's going to happen. I'm going to start questioning myself. I'm going to wonder if I'm actually able to connect. I'm going to wonder if I'm going to be able to receive information for them. And then I'm going to get into the session and it's going to be an amazing session. And it happens every time. I feel like every time I have one of those things where I'm like, oh God, I'm so nervous about this session. Why do I feel like I'm not going to be able to connect? It ends up being the best session and so impactful. So much comes through. People are flabbergasted. That just goes to show that it's all me. It's me. It's my fear. distracting me from what is. And what is that no matter what, you are connected to your higher self, you're connected to your guides, and you're connected to spirit. You are always receiving information. You are always channeling. You're just not always conscious that you're doing it. And so part of developing your intuition and connecting and receiving clear insights and guidance is letting go and trusting and allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to receive. It's already coming at you. There's so many times I've done readings for people where they feel like they're not getting the guidance. And then they ask the question and I say the things and they're like, "Oh my God, I knew that." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." It's like I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't know. I might tell you things that you weren't consciously aware of, but you know all of the things. So, yes. I wanted to share a time that I I started doing psychic readings. And psychic readings are so different from Akashic Records readings. Like the way that it feels, the way that I think the way I receive information is the same. I'm still using my same senses. I have my own style. It's but it feels different, the way that you're interacting with the energy. And so I started with Akashic Records. That was my first skill that I learned. And I mean, in the context of doing readings, I think I learned Reiki first. But as far as like between Akashic and psychic stuff, I was like, okay, Akashic Records is what I'm feeling called to. I didn't feel like I was psychic, so I didn't feel like doing psychic readings was something that was open to me. Um, but it is. It's open to all of us. We all have access to these abilities. For some people, it will come more easily. And for others, you'll have to study harder, practice more, and work a little harder, and it might take a little longer. But we all have psychic abilities, and we all have access to the quantum field. We are all able to access our Akashic records. We are all able to get psychic insights. And so when I first started offering psychic readings, I was so nervous about it. One, because it was just different from what I was used to, and it was less structured. When I do Akashic Records readings, I have like a whole process I do, and then I say a prayer to get in there, and I set my intention, and it's very structured. I like structure. And with psychic readings, it's very much like I was just setting my intention, like, all right, I'm connecting to your energy. That's literally it. That's what I do when I do a psychic reading. I'm like, all right, I'm meeting with Joe Billy Bob. All right, connecting with Joe Billy Bob's energy, setting the intention to be able to deliver clear insights to him for his highest and greatest good. And I'm going to do it in the way that will make the most sense for him. Boom, intention set. I'm in your energy now. That's how easy it is. It's not hard. And but when I was doing it, I just felt so much. And it was before the session. Before the session, it's like my brain would just go into overdrive about all of the catastrophe things that could happen. And then as soon as I get into that place where I connect with the energy, I've set my intention and I'm like, I'm connecting with your energy. I'm in this session with you now. All of that, the nervousness falls away. And it's because when you're in the moment, like I said, you let go of your expectations. You let go of any stories you've been telling yourself. You let go of any of these emotional reactions you're having to things. And you are just this vessel, this conduit to receive and give. And it's it's such a cool, energetic exchange. So I really want to reframe imposter syndrome because I know that it can be overwhelming, it can be daunting, it can prevent us from challenging ourselves, from taking the steps that we need to take for that next level of growth or to even get started on certain journeys. So, oh man, let me take another sip here. Jesus, clearing out my throat chakra this morning. Okay. So I want to connect imposter syndrome to personal growth and high standards because when you are feeling nervous and you're feeling imposter syndrome taking over, it's really just a sign that you're committed to what you're doing and that you have a desire to show up as your best self, that you want to do well. Imposter syndrome comes from having high standards and wanting to do well. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's just reinforcing that you are committed to your purpose and to being the best that you can be at something. And I don't, I don't even think I actually described what imposter syndrome is. And I always do that. I'm always given definitions at the beginning. So this is the time to do it. Imposter syndrome is essentially where you feel like an imposter. You feel like, let me give you an example. So in tech, in my tech job, as somebody who writes code and programs applications, builds applications, my imposter syndrome comes in there as, oh no, I don't know enough. I need to learn more about code. What if somebody finds out that I don't know everything there is to know about code? And I wanted to give that example because it's very irrational. I feel like imposter syndrome is a little irrational. Like, there's no way I'm going to know everything there is to know about code. I know enough to be dangerous. I know a lot, actually. I know a lot about code, but the imposter syndrome comes in and it's like, you're not good enough. You're not enough. And then it's like it creates this shell around you, and then you're kind of cowering in this energy of like, oh no, what if people find out that I'm not good enough? What if people find out that I'm not enough? That's imposter syndrome. And when you hold yourself to high standards, it means that you are consistently pushing the boundaries of your comfort zone. When you have a growth mindset, it means you are consistently pushing the boundaries of your comfort zone. And a key factor in developing and honing any skill is pushing the boundaries of your comfort zone. And it comes with a bit of discomfort. So don't be hard on yourself. Don't judge yourself when you're feeling like, oh no, can I? That is just your opportunity to be like, oh, I can, because literally anything is possible. And anything that I want to do, I can do. And I don't need somebody else to do it first to prove it to me. I could do that. I could do it for myself. Like, let's start reframing this not enough feeling, this imposter syndrome epidemic, I want to call it. So many of us have it, and we just don't all admit it. So let's see. Do I have an example of imposter syndrome? Ugh. I mean, outside of tech, I want to give a spiritual one. I mean, I had it for fitness too when I was a personal trainer. Anything I've ever done, I've had imposter syndrome. I have it as an artist. I had it as a personal trainer. I had it as a nutrition coach. I've had it as a substitute teacher. Anything I've ever done, I've had imposter syndrome. And I have very high standards. They're high. And I like that because it gives me something to work toward. But I'm also doing this thing now where I'm recognizing my accomplishments and I'm giving myself a pat on the back. And I'm not just always trying to get to the next thing. I'm taking the time to stop and be like, wow, look at where I am compared to where I was. I might not be where I think I want to be, but I am so much further than I was. Look at all this progress I've made. Look at where I'm at now. Look at my perspective now. I have such a an increasingly broad perspective, because the more things I go through, the more it expands my perspective of life, of reality, of what's possible. The more that I experience challenges and then meet those challenges with enthusiasm and just keep on pushing through, even when it's scared, the more I realize that my potential is infinite. And I want you all to realize that your potential is also infinite. And the more that you acknowledge what you're scared of and you tell yourself, okay, cool, this fear is coming up because there's uncertainty around it. And there's uncertainty around it because it's new, but new things are exciting because new things open doors to pathways I didn't even know were available to me that could take me to places that I haven't even dreamed of yet. It's exciting. So having high standards is not a bad thing. Not recognizing your progress, not celebrating your wins, that is what's going to get you. So make sure you're taking time to have gratitude. I hope all that pulled together and made sense. So, some tips for reframing and embracing imposter syndrome. I want to encourage you guys to view any kind of nervousness you have as part of the intuitive process. It's just part of the process. If you get nervous before you do a session, and I do almost every time before I do a session with somebody, I get nervous. I don't get nervous if I'm doing sessions for myself though, because I'm like, I mean, the stakes aren't as high. I know that I'm going to bring through insights for myself. It's the nervousness comes to me when there's somebody else involved. And that's, I bet you, now that I'm talking out loud about this, because I'm a verbal processor. And so when I say things out loud, it helps me to process them. That was very redundant. But I think that part of my nervousness in doing readings for other people comes from me wanting to please those people. If I'm not nervous when I'm doing a reading for myself, because I know that I'm going to be able to connect in the way that I need to connect and I'm going to get insights for my highest good. There's no pressure. I know. And I'm the one who's responding to what's coming through for me. And so it just takes all the pressure off. And when I go into a session with somebody else, I'm like, oh no, I hope that like I don't offend them. I hope that what I say makes sense. There's just all of a sudden there's so much more pressure to like perform and be right. But it's not a performance and there is no right, which is why I said whatever comes through is what was meant to come through at that time. There are no coincidences. There are no accidents. I was going to say our lives are these paths full of breadcrumbs and we're just picking up the breadcrumbs and getting to the next one and then just kind of seeing where the path is leading, even if we have an idea where we want to go. And so look at your nerves, look at the nervousness. If you accept that nervousness, if you give yourself permission to feel that nervousness and you're not trying to push it away, accept it and look at it as a part of the process. Look at it as a sign that your intuitive and empathic senses are attuning to the energy. That's what that is. And another thing that I learned is a lot of the time when I'm feeling that nervousness, it's not all me. A lot of the time I'm picking up on that person's energy. When I know that I have a session coming up with somebody, I've already set the intention because it's scheduled in my calendar. That's intention. There's an intention to have this session with this person and deliver insights for their highest good. And so it's already a type of energetic connection. We've already made an agreement. And so I'll start getting insights sometimes for people before the session even starts. And sometimes I'm picking up on the person's nervousness. But if I'm not paying attention, if I'm not being good about my spiritual hygiene, my energetic boundaries, and all the things, and I'm not very in tune with myself, I won't realize that it's not my nervousness. So anyway, reframe nervousness as part of the process and accept that it's okay to feel nervous. It's okay. I've been doing a lot of EFT tapping lately because I'm all for energy healing. And I tend to be somebody who really, I'm in my head a lot. I like to intellectualize things. I just love intellect. I love thinking through stuff. I love logic. I love analyzing stuff. I love problem solving. I love using my brain. And for a long time in my healing journey, I was intellectualizing things. So, and I thought, well, if I understand what's happening, then that's the same thing as, acknowledging it, healing, and letting go. Nope. Understanding something doesn't mean you're processing it. And so I'm learning to actually process and not just intellectualize. And so I have been cognitively processing things, but we're a whole package. Spirit, mind, body. Spirit, mind, and body. Is that all of them? Oh my gosh. I didn't have coffee today. I would like to have some coffee. I haven't had coffee in a few days, actually. I don't know why I said that like I need coffee to be on point. That was weird. I don't need coffee to think clearly. Look at that. Count myself in a belief. I don't need coffee. I'm not scattered because I didn't have coffee. I'm probably more clear because I didn't have coffee. Okay, but back to what I was saying. Shoot. What was I saying? Um, this is what happens. This is what happens when you rabbit hole. I'm just going to take a moment. It'll come back. It'll come back if it needs to come back. As soon as I start talking about something else, fear of how you're being received and wanting to make sure that somebody's going to understand the messages that was coming through. I'm just kind of trying to talk myself through what I was saying. All right, I'm going to move on. I'm sure I was wrapping my point up. I hope I was wrapping my point up. Okay, so I need to stop interrupting myself. I'm going to add that. Oh, yes, I've been doing EFT. Knew it would come back up. So I'm used to intellectualizing stuff. And as I've started processing things cognitively, I've realized that I also need to process things in my body because we store trauma in our body. And my body is too attuned to the way that my brain has been functioning because, like I said, it's a package deal. It all works together, synergy. And so, as somebody who used to worry, I like to speak about it in the past tense because I'm not trying to reiterate or solidify stuff that I'm letting go of. So I'm not going to say like, I am like this or I am this way. Let's keep it fluid. So as somebody who in the past has been very stressed out, very high anxiety, my body got used to being very stressed out, very high anxiety, because your body listens to the signals that your brain sends it. And if your brain is like stress, stress, anxiety, then you're sending signals to your body saying stress, stress, anxiety. And previously, I know well, maybe not everybody has heard this, but previously in our lives, when our bodies get that stress, stress, anxiety, anxiety, fear response, we go into like overdrive, adrenaline goes up, stress hormones, cortisol goes up because it's supposed to be this very pinpointed thing so that you can survive in that moment. Like if you're out walking on a trail and a saber-toothed tiger pops out, boom, fight or flight kicks in. Like this is a life or death situation. We don't have those kinds of stressors in our lives anymore. And so we have found ways to introduce it into our lives. Oh no, my boyfriend didn't take the trash out. I'm stressing out and I'm really angry because God, he never takes the trash out. I wish I didn't have to ask him to take the trash out. This is not real. This is not a real example. My boyfriend usually takes the trash out, which is great. Actually, maybe it is an example because there have been times, but not the point. Focus. We're focusing. And so our when you stress a lot or you worry a lot or you're not cultivating that calm, your body's going to follow suit. And so I've been working on regulating my nervous system for a while, and I'm finally to the point where I'm like, okay, I want to actually like really start releasing these things and retraining my body. And I've been releasing my stuck emotions and energy and stuff through the emotion code because that helps to recalibrate your vibration. So, and raise your vibration because when you're holding on to things that are in disresonance with your vibration, it messes with your frequency. And we want our frequencies to be higher. That's where we're moving toward. We want to increase our frequency. And so getting rid of things that are disresonant helps you to raise your frequency. It helps you to cultivate more calm. It helps you to stabilize your energy so that you're not feeling triggered all the time, so that you're not constantly in fight or flight. And it's been so helpful. Like my healing has been so impactful on my intuition and my psychic abilities, allowing myself to look at the things in my subconscious and in my life that are impacting me emotionally, and then actually dealing with them and processing them has just made more room for me to hold more light. Let's put it like that. And so if you're trying to connect psychically, if you're trying to deepen your intuition, the inner work is so important. Understanding how you work, what your programming is, so that you can recognize when that is coming in. Because what will happen is we're channeling insights and it goes through us as a filter because it has to pass through. And if you're not aware of your belief system, if you're not aware of your traumas, if you're not aware of how your thoughts impact you and your behaviors, it can be difficult to discern between what is your thought, what is this thing in your subconscious, and what is the psychic insight. And I think that also hangs us up sometimes. So inner work is great. Do the inner work when you're ready. No pressure. Okay, so another tip for reframing and embracing imposter syndrome. I love grounding and centering exercises. They help you to release tension, they help you to focus, and they help to create that really safe, sacred container and help you to be in the moment and be more mindful. I like breathing exercises. I love breath work. A lot of the time when I'm grounding and centering before session, I take a few deep breaths. Sometimes I'll just count my breaths. I recently heard somebody say you can get back into a parasympathetic, like rest and digest state by doing inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 8 seconds, and do that for like 3 minutes straight. I think it was Rob Dial from the Mindset Mentor podcast. Love that podcast, by the way. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10. And they're good. They're like short. They're like 18, 20 minutes. So good. Definitely check it out. And it's all about like self-discovery and healing and like very practical things that you can use in your life. Love it so much. Affirmations also help, but you have to make sure that you're pulling, you're acknowledging whatever the subconscious thing is, because if you're consciously saying affirmations, but your subconscious beliefs are different and you're not also rewiring those, then you saying a conscious affirmation isn't going to be as impactful. I feel like I need to explain what I mean by that. Let's say that I've got this subconscious belief that money is scarce and I'll never have enough of it. And so I need to hold on to it very tightly. But then I'm telling myself consciously, I spend money with ease. The money that I spend comes right back to me. I subconsciously don't believe that. And so consciously saying it is not going to change my subconscious belief. 95% of our behaviors are subconscious. 5% of our behaviors are conscious. Or, you know what I feel like you get what I'm saying. So if I'm consciously saying, this money just grows on trees in my backyard, but I don't believe that money comes to me that easily, then I'm going to operate from that 95% subconscious place, not from the 5% affirmation speaking conscious place. I hope that made sense. So being aware of your patterns, of your programming, and then intentionally rewiring it to match what you do want, to match the affirmations and new patterns that you're creating. That is an important part of the inner work process. What else? Self-compassion is another thing that can help you with imposter syndrome and kind of reframing that. So instead of trying to be perfect, talking to myself right now, like the perfectionism is not it. When you're practicing self-compassion and cultivating more of that, it helps you to move through your nerves without judging yourself. And something that helps me to be more compassionate toward myself is acknowledging how far I've come. It's looking at my progress. It's taking moments to have gratitude for all of the amazing blessings that I have in my life, for all of the amazing opportunities, for this experience that I get. There are billions and billions and billions, so many, I don't even think there's a number for it, of souls who would love to be in a human body having this experience. This is a privilege. You are so lucky that you won the lottery and got to come down here and do what we're doing. Did you know that? I know sometimes when we're going through heavy emotions, it's like, oh my God, I can't wait to go. But we won the prize. Like this is the reward. It's being here. It's getting to have these experiences. It's getting to feel the full spectrum of emotions. We're so lucky. And so reframing that and having compassion for yourself, like maybe you made a mistake. Maybe you did something you didn't want to do. Maybe you said something in a reading and it pissed somebody off. But have that compassion for yourself to understand that in that moment, you did the best that you could. And that's all you can do. In any given moment, you are doing the best that you can. And that is all you can do. So have compassion for yourself. Have compassion for yourself. Okay. I also want to give you guys some affirmations to help out. So one of my favorite affirmations is I am a channel for unconditional love and light, and I receive insights easily and clearly. I am a channel, and I trust the insights I am meant to, I trust the insights I am meant to share. Another affirmation you can use for imposter syndrome is imposter syndrome is a reflection of my growth and dedication. And I just want to remind you guys that every reading, every insight you receive and or deliver is perfect, and it's part of the journey. And I want you to honor your doubts as companions on this path of mastery that we're on. Anything that you're going through can just be something you're going through. It doesn't have to have a meaning as far as who you are. So consider that. Just because you made a mistake, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. Just because you lost your temper, it doesn't mean you're not spiritual. Just because you said something mean, it doesn't mean that you're doomed forever and you're not a good person. Let's stop labeling everything as good and bad. And let's start looking at imposter syndrome as a sign of dedication, commitment, and growth. And on that note, thank you so much for joining me in this episode of the Spirituality with Ashley podcast. I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment on the podcast episode. Did you get anything out of it? Did you learn anything? Do you have imposter syndrome? I would love to hear from you. Share the podcast episode with friends, family, anybody you think would benefit from it. Post it on your stories if you think that somebody could benefit. And just thank you so much for all of your continued support. I love you so much. And until the next episode, go forth, do great things. Tell somebody you love them. All right. I'll see you guys in the next episode.